Hello and welcome to our audience out there. Today's event is entitled Always On and Always Protected. On this event, you'll learn how to safeguard your data with the new Veeam Availability Suite V10 with help from HPE. This event is brought to you by Veeam and Hewlett-Packard Enterprise and produced by Actual Tech Media. My name is David Davis, and I'm excited to be your moderator for today's event. Now, on this event, we want this to be educational. So as you have questions about data protection challenges, disaster recovery, and the new Veeam Availability Suite, we encourage you to use the questions box there in your audience console. That's just to the right of the handouts tab. And if you click on questions, that's where you enter your questions. We've got experts from Veeam and HPE standing by to answer those questions throughout the event. We'll also be doing a dedicated Q&A session at the end of today's event. So get your questions in early. We also have a number of handouts available to you. We have our slide deck there in the handouts tab. And then we have a special URL where you can download the new IDC research report on the 5-year ROI of Veeam and the HPE solution. So make sure that you check that out and get that special report. Finally, we have an Amazon $300 gift card to give away to one lucky attendee on this live event. We'll be announcing that prize at the end of today's webinar after the Q&A session. And now I'm excited to hand it over to our first presenter. Take it away, Jeff.
All right, excellent. Hey, thanks, David, and thanks to the whole ATM team for hosting us here today. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Jeff Carlett. I get the privilege of leading the overarching Veeam strategic partnership within Hewlett-Packard Enterprise. And I'm joined here by two distinguished gentlemen here, Chris Donohoe, who is HPE Solution Architect at Veeam and a key part of our joint team together, and Mark Pollan. Mark Pollan is really leading the alliance enablement from Veeam facing HPE. So he's also critical to as we move forward here in our partnership. So with that, I'm going to tee it off with a little bit about the context, the market challenges, and then I'll turn it over to the experts here to run through specifically what we're doing with regards to our partnership and the co-innovation we are driving together. First and foremost, when we stop and take a look at the challenges that are around us, we're living in quite interesting times, and it was interesting before COVID-19, and it's even greater and it's interesting now. And I've been able to witness around 25, 26 years of technology evolution, and I've really never seen this level of reliance, sheer reliance of the data that businesses are creating and how to derive insights from that. The world really is evolving rapidly. Everything's being digitized. It's really resulting in increasing requirements around how data backup and business continuity is managed, and we're here to basically help in that space. So, let's discuss a little bit about the evolution we're seeing and the challenges then that enterprises of all sizes are faced with. Let me advance one. I've witnessed the evolution of technology and how technology has really moved from, in the past, it was really just there to assist businesses to actually really being core to the outcomes that businesses are delivering. We've really evolved from, the old mainframe days and up through the client server days where applications had traditionally been locked in the data center and delivered via business applications in more of a rigid, controlled working environment. Then, a long time went by and mobility started creeping in. With the advent of the smartphone, we really seen not only applications being ported over to a mobile platforms, but we've actually seen applications being developed specifically for mobility in a mobile workforce. Increasingly, then, people are wanting to do their business in a seamless manner, whether it be sitting in front of a PC at work to a mobile device such as an iPad, iPhone, Android, whatever your flavor is. And then in that mobility move, look at the companies that really have disrupted the traditional markets, your Lyft and Ubers and everything as a service company, whereby the data that's being captured from the clients or the customers is really critically valued in allowing the delivery of tailored content and new experiences that actually improve the service levels or the customer satisfaction levels. Then fast forward now the last few years, where increasingly it's the days of edge and IoT, where increasingly the applications are actually moving out of the data center, the traditional data center, all the way out to the edge where the analytics can actually be run to more efficiently deliver outcomes in a rapid fashion. So the use of sensors and compute at the edge can produce greater insights, such as predictive maintenance when things are going to fail before they fail, making autonomous vehicles work, smart cities. But the data is so critical and it's captured via thousands of sensors and it's analyzed at the edge, providing insight to be used in that decision making. Data is increasingly important and central for this application. Then look at the world we're really emerging now, and that's the use of artificial intelligence and machine learning. It's really ushering in a new wave of, I'll call it the data scientist, where data is really the most valuable asset in the company. And we're moving from where traditionally data would be run against an algorithm and then produce an answer to a new world where data is actually matched with answers and then an algorithm is produced. Example is when you're training complex neural networks to visually recognize what is a person versus what is a mailbox or a tree, and that is being used in making autonomous cars smarter and smarter to know, how to actually navigate, if you will, the complexities of the real world. Data is a common thread here. It's increasingly critical for businesses to compete, and efficiency and effectiveness of the backup and recovery are paramount in acquiring and retaining the customer. I mean, go look at ransomware, for example. As of last week, April 17th, Cognizant, one of Fortune 500's biggest system integrators, had a VMware Maze ransomware attack. They stated it's actually going to have a material impact on its revenue and margin. Data is critical, and companies are scrambling to shore up their security, but also ensure they have a robust backup and disaster recovery plan. So with this context, let me turn it over to Chris Donohoe to really dig in a little bit deeper about the challenges, and we'll talk about what we are jointly doing together to help you navigate these perilous world. Chris?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, you did a really great job. I love the overview and really to set the context of the value of data today. And the supreme value of the data is really increasing the urgency of data protection, and the evolution of technology has just increased the complexity of doing that. So, yeah, with that stage set, we'll talk about some more practical. We'll drill down into some of the challenges that customers are facing today. The first being just the sheer growth of data. Not only is it becoming more valuable and complex, it's growing at a rate faster than we've ever seen. And we see this rapid growth of data year over year, just in terms of the number of objects growing, the rich the file size of the data growing. We've progressed from documents to pictures to videos. Now we're starting to tag those videos with and all the rest of this data with metadata. So we're just adding more value and more size to the data. We're being forced to keep this data longer because of customer expectations, or in many cases, regulatory compliance. And companies are also facing challenges from active threats as well. Ransomware is an unfortunate reality of doing business today, and the only cure for ransomware really is prevention. Without a plan for prevention, companies are really faced with this unfortunate decision of having to pay a ransom or losing data. So it's very, very important for for companies to be prepared to protect this data. Companies are also faced with brand damage from customers. And as a former system administrator myself, I like to remind executives, you want to avoid brand damage with your own employees. Employees are expensive to replace, and they're the ones managing, protecting, oftentimes generating your data. So if they see executives investing in the protection of this data, that gives them the peace of mind they need to continue working, innovating, generating revenue for your business. And as alluded to earlier, there's also a higher expectation of backup data today. Companies want to generate value from backup data, providing fresh data for development, security testing, data mining scripts, and applications. And this isn't as easy as it might sound. Veeam was the pioneer to market with instant VM recovery and data labs to meet this need for on-demand test dev environments. And you'll see more later on in this presentation about that. And then I'll point out probably an obvious challenge that if you back something up, you need to recover it. You need the ability to recover it. But you don't just need to be able to recover it. You need to be able to recover it quickly and recover only what you need. I also need to be able to recover to a different location, migrating workloads to remote locations or to the cloud. One point that often gets missed in this migration conversation is the ability to repatriate those workloads as well, migrating from the cloud back to your data center. Many first cloud or cloud first strategies have been rethought. For instance, once that that first Amazon bill arrives. Uh, Now, cloud compute and storage definitely has a place alongside on-premises and compute and storage. Um, and really, Veeam's goal is just to help customers migrate their workloads to locations which make sense for them. Sometimes that's a balance of that's going to be a balance of these workloads in both of these locations. And our product to support this is our Veeam Cloud Data Management Platform. Our flagship product obviously is backup and replication to protect data and replicate workloads. We also have Veeam Availability Orchestrator to automate failover and migration of workloads for disaster recovery. We also have Veeam One, which gives our customers monitoring analytics, and we provide these capabilities across a variety of infrastructures. We can monitor and protect public and private cloud workloads, software as a service offerings like Office 365. We're perhaps best known for protecting on-premises virtual workloads on VMware, Hyper-V, and Nutanix, and we also back up physical servers as well. But it doesn't stop there. One of our key characteristics of our platform is that we have direct snapshot integration with HPE storage, and this improves backup performance. It also ensures that all the Veeam restore options perform efficiently for customers. All of these products and integrations in the Veeam Cloud Data Management Platform deliver 5 main capabilities you see here. And I've already spoken about these, but just to quickly run through them again, customers can protect workloads and recover data in a timely manner, migrate workloads across different infrastructures, monitor the environment to know if workloads are protected, when a data recovery might be necessary, when a workload could benefit from a migration to a different location, orchestration of that migration and reuse of secondary data. And then finally, we need to enable customers to overcome challenges around governance and compliance. For instance, GDPR, like a customer's right to be forgotten, for example. So let's talk about specifically what's new in V10. We're going to talk about a handful of main features among a total delivery of 150 new features in V10. I'm going to talk about 4 features, the first being our new NAS Backup feature. This is an extreme improvement over a very old protocol named NDNP, which surprisingly enough is primarily how people still back up network attached storage today. Uh, we, in contrast, have a very flexible and high performance offering that backs up SMB or NFS NAS shares, as well as Windows and Linux file servers. And the power of our NAS backup is in our change file tracking, where we track a hash value of every directory and file in the file system tree. This enables us to quickly identify files which have changed since the last backup. After the initial full backup, we don't have to traverse the entire file system to determine the changed files. And this enables customers to back up NAS devices with millions of files in a very short period of time. You're not going to avoid the initial requirement, obviously, on any backup product of having that initial full backup, but just assuming that you're not turning over your data, 100% of your data every day, that incremental is really going to be where our new NAS backup really shines. And we can also leverage snapshots for NAS providers who offer this functionality. All that has the benefits of avoiding file locks, so you know that all the changed files in the file systems can be backed up. You know you're backing up an entire NAS from a specific point in time, and you can offload performance from the production environment. We have a full featured uh, list of recovery options as well for NAS backup. You can recover the entire share, you can recover to a specific point in time, and then we have an option for fire level recovery as well. The next feature that is worth discussing is the improvement to our next generation instant VM recovery engine. We powered this or pioneered this functionality a decade ago now, and it was just a matter of taking a backup file, creating an NFS share on the fly, mounting the backup file to it, and powering it up in the VMware environment directly from the backup. And then the customer could vMotion it back to production at their convenience. In V10, we've improved. We have a couple of improvements that are worth noting here. The first being what I would personally refer to as mass instant VM recovery. In previous features or previous versions of Veeam, the you selected these one at a time and restored these sequentially. In Veeam 10, you can I would define this really as an entire workload recovery, because oftentimes you have multiple VMs that are in a workload that are responsible for providing an application solution, and you want to restore those uh, all at the same time. That's now possible in Veeam 10, where you can provide or perform a instant VM recovery on an entire list of VMs, and it'll restore those all at once, and as opposed to consecutively as in previous releases. We've also added a lot of intelligence to the software to improve performance. I won't go through all of the sort of propeller head details there, but one of them that's really easy to understand would be the optimized RAM cache, so we're less dependent on the underlying backup storage. And really, that's just a fancy way of saying that we're utilizing memory of the mount server to improve the performance of the instant VM recovery. So we have a much faster IVMR engine in V10. And finally, this slide was focused on instant VM recovery, but I'd also note the number of restore options we identify here. It's important to note that in V10, you can restore any Veeam backup to vSphere. If you have physical servers you want to migrate to a virtual environment, we can do that. If you want to repatriate cloud VMs, we can do that. So we offer a true data migration product to customers. The next feature would be cloud tier and SOAP enhancements. This is a functionality we introduced in early 2019 with 9.5 Update 4. We introduced the ability to move older backup data to object storage in a cloud tier. This could be public cloud storage like AWS, or it could be on-premises cloud solution like Scality. V10 now introduces an option to immediately copy backup data to this cloud tier, so customers can retain a copy on site and in the cloud storage. And this gives us a few different capabilities to customers. First, we shouldn't overlook the original value add of this feature to automatically move backup data off site. So, for instance, you don't need a second backup copy job to move that data. It's built into the functionality of the scale-up backup repository. Second, it helps customers satisfy a full 3-2-1 data protection strategy because they have a copy of the data on premises and in the cloud. And third, we've added the capability to make that backup data immutable at an object level. This is important in the event of a ransomware attack that I was talking about earlier. You can be confident that you always have that last line of defense to get your data back. A lot of these ransomware attacks are accompanied with an active attacker that tries to compromise the backups. And if you have that last line of defense and an immutable backup, then that attacker can't get to that data. So we've continued to improve the functionality and features of our scale-out backup repository. And then finally, I'll talk about the last thing I'll talk about before handing this off to Mark to discuss the specific HPE and Veeam co-innovation features is the new data integration API. This is the ability of in a single API call to make a backup, crack it open, and let the business do something more with it, whether that's forensic testing, DevOps testing, data mining, or data classification for your compliance teams. You can take the data you already have to drive toward a better business outcome. This is really taking that backup data and getting more value out of it as opposed to just sitting there idle in the data center. So we truly provide a better backup solution in Veeam 10. All these capabilities in V10 really combine to deliver this better backup system. And I encourage you to engage us to find out about the many more features, some of which I've listed here, whether it's backing up SAP and Oracle or expanding our Linux capabilities. And so now, Mark, you're up to talk about our partnership with HPE, the integrations we have with the HP portfolio, and the positive business outcomes that we deliver together.
Thank you, Chris. Great job. So as Chris mentioned, my name's Mark Pollan. I'm a technical enablement engineer with Veeam, and I'd like to walk you through how Veeam and HPE are better together and what we've been working on most recently. So if we look at the problems that our customers face, and when I say our, I do mean both Veeam and HPE combined customers, of which there are thousands. They, as Jeff pointed out up front, data, the value of data is paramount. I heard a video recently of the HPE CEO, Antonio Neri, referring to data as the new currency. And I think that really shows the high level of value that companies have on their data. They can't continue to operate without access to their data. And if there are gaps in the availability of the data, that could be devastating to an organization. Organizations also are being asked again and again, and in today's environment, even more, to do more with less. So keep the systems up, but do it with less people and less budget. That seems completely contradictory, I know. And then solutions that weren't designed for the multi-cloud era can provide such complexity that they can interfere with everything we just talked about, providing the data and the service levels to the end users and even to the customers of these organizations. Together, HPE and Veeam are able to provide much higher availability and reliability of the data to drive that data-driven enterprise. We do it very efficiently with increased productivity through things like ease of use, but also reduce costs and reduce downtime. And finally, the simplicity of the products. Gone are the days where you plan days to do a deployment of new storage or a new backup application. The expectation today is I started this morning and I'm going to be, I'll be done by lunchtime and getting on to other things. So some very positive outcomes with Veeam and HPE together. And Veeam and HPE have been working together for a very long time on this. This wasn't something that just happened, over the last year or so. We've been going back over 9 years working with HPE, doing integrations, doing joint best practices papers, reference architectures, integrating with various products in the storage portfolio. And we've got 3 exciting new features to talk about with version 10. I will get to those in just a moment. But I gotta say that this, I find, I am a technologist, otherwise known as a geek, and I do find this a very exciting roadmap or reverse roadmap. And I can tell you that the things that I am aware of that Veeam and HPE are working on that will come later this year and into the future are as exciting, if not more, than what you see here. If we look at the different areas where Veeam and HPE have that integration and that powerful synergy, it's on the primary storage platforms, Nimble, 3PAR, Primera. It's on the backup storage on-prem, could be StoreOnce, Apollo, or Nimble storage. To satisfy the 3-2-1 rule of backup, 3 copies of your data, 2 media types, 1 offsite, I need to have some offsite storage, a lot of flexibility there. Veeam's product is backup and replication, so we can replicate virtual machine workloads to other sites for ease of disaster recovery and also or failover, and also improved recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives. And then finally, with SimpliVity, we enhance the capabilities that SimpliVity natively has. Last point to make here is, it was mentioned previously that customers went to a cloud-first strategy, and now some are returning, repatriating back on premise. And it's interesting when you read stories about this, what these customers were looking for in going to cloud computing was the ability to pay for just what they're using, not to have to go out and buy a large amount of capacity in advance, anticipating that they might use that someday. And that's really what HPE's GreenLake Flex Capacity program is designed to do. You still get to have your on-premise data center, like you've been doing over the last several decades potentially, but now you can do it as, pay for just what you use. So all of Veeam's products and all of HPE's products can be delivered through that cloud model of consumption and payment for that through the GreenLake Flex Capacity program. I'm real excited to be able to tell you about the 3 new capabilities, 3 new integrations with HPE in version 10. The first one is support for HPE's new 100% availability Primera storage platform. The second one is an expansion of the Catalyst support that Veeam has had for years to include almost all workloads. And then finally, say the best for last, integration with HPE's StoreOnce Catalyst Copy, or CAT Copy, as sometimes you'll hear techies call it. So let's take each one of those and talk a little bit more about those. Primera Storage Snapshot integration, again, included with Veeam version 10. Veeam version 10 shipped this year on February 18th, so it's been out for a couple of months. As Chris mentioned, about 150 new capabilities. Here's one of them. So a very ambitious release, and when I say that, I always feel like I should tell you about how it's going. I've heard recently from our technical support that their call volume is very modest. So another of a long line of very stable releases from Veeam, very production ready. With Primera, we have the ability, like we've had with Nimble and 3PAR, to be able to integrate with Storage Snapshot, so we can back up from Storage Snapshot, offloading that performance off of the production environment. We can also orchestrate snapshots right from within the Veeam console. So I could, for instance, as you see in the graphic in the lower right, I could have a nightly backup that I run in one Veeam job, and then every hour throughout the day, I could have Veeam run another job. We call it a snapshot only job to orchestrate the snapshots being created on, in this case, the Primera platform, but it could be 3PAR, could be Nimble as well. And then the two other capabilities with our snapshot orchestration, Chris mentioned data labs and the ability to boot machines from the backup file into an isolated network environment for secondary use cases like DevOps or DevSec or business intelligence. Those can also, you can also boot virtual machines from snapshots, providing quite a bit better performance potentially. And then the final thing is, we're very well known for our granular restore Veeam Explorers, and we have a Veeam Explorer dedicated to storage snapshots. Even snapshots that weren't orchestrated by Veeam, Veeam can go in and do granular recovery of those. For expanded Catalyst support, we've been able to back up VMware virtual machines, Hyper-V virtual machines, and leverage that Catalyst source side deduplication for years. With version 10, we have really expanded the offering to include Nutanix AHV virtual machines, Windows and Linux physical machines with our agents, and our plugins for Oracle and SAP HANA that allow the the database administrator rather to keep their native backups. For instance, with Oracle, Recovery Manager, or RMAN is how they want to back up the Oracle databases. So now those backups can be sent directly to a Veeam backup repository, as it's shown here. That's underpinned by a StoreOnce. Increases the efficiency rather than dumping a backup to a local storage device and then having the backup application pick that up. And then you see reference to future agents. So earlier you saw that Veeam has agents not only for Linux and Windows, but also for Solaris and AIX. And so those are on the roadmap to be added to the Catalyst support in a future Veeam release. And finally, Catalyst Copy. This is a critical piece of functionality for support for StoreOnce, so that when the backups are done, the Veeam backup server coordinates those backups. So if you're sending a set of backups to that first StoreOnce #1, let's say I'm keeping 30 days of retention, then the StoreOnce can send the backup data fully deduplicated, no need to rehydrate. So leveraging the most efficiency across the wide area network to get over to the DR site, let's say, where that StoreOnce 2 is, and I can have all those backups sitting there on the StoreOnce #2. And should anything bad happen to my primary site and my StoreOnce 1, Veeam knows about the inventory of the backups on both systems, so that you can immediately begin restoring from StoreOnce 2 without having to do a rescan or a re-inventory. So very efficient way to deal with that, leveraging the full capabilities of what StoreOnce Catalyst has to offer. In conclusion, I mentioned, Veeam V10 was released on February 18th, 150 plus new capabilities, very stable production ready release. the 3 new capabilities with HPE, 3 new integrations, support for snapshot integration with Primera, expanded Catalyst support for virtually all workloads, physical and virtual, and Catalyst copy integration. So better performance, increased data security, and decreasing costs, right? If you think about those, the pains and outcomes that we talked about, or I talked about when I first started, right? Directly impacting those things to our customers' benefit. And our long relationship is very deep. It's very wide between our 2 organizations and continues at a pace that is actually, I would describe as picking up momentum moving into the future. We have some resources here, and you'll actually be able to click on this slide to get to any of these links. And also, I want to draw your attention to the handouts box to the left of the presentation window. In the handouts, all of today's slides are in there, the PDF link you'll find, and you can download those, and all of these links are active links. So you will, even if you don't click on them now, you can grab that PDF. You can click on them later. There are also that IDC white paper, total cost of ownership white paper. That's a great one, and that's an exclusive for you. You won't find that on either one of our company's websites for free download. So please take advantage of the handout resources and any of these resources. So with that, I will hand it back to David to bring us home.
Excellent presentation. Thank you, Chris, Mark, and Jeff. Really cool stuff we're talking about today. We're going to do some Q&A. We've got lots of questions coming in from the audience. While we do that, we've brought up a poll question for you out there in the audience, and it just says, what additional information would you like about the Veeam HPE solution? So we'll leave that up while we do some Q&A. First question that came in, they're asking about ransomware attacking the Veeam backup server. Is that even possible? Who wants to handle that one? Chris, maybe?
Yeah, sure, it is possible. That's what I was referencing earlier, that to give yourself a complete protection against ransomware attack, because the ransomware attack is often accompanied by an active attacker. That's the combo that a lot of companies don't recover from, because they have their backups, but they aren't prepared for an active attacker combined with the ransomware. So what you have is the ransomware that encrypts data, which requires the need for backups to recover from backups. But then you have an active attacker that tries to compromise the backup server and remove those backups, so that's not possible to restore from. The ultimate solution to that, the ultimate prevention for that, is to be able to have immutable backups, which we do provide through S3 compatible storage, which supports object lock. An add-on comment that I would make to that is, one way that I would prevent an active attacker from getting access to your backup server would be to require not just your standard complicated passwords, but really have multi authentication enabled to get access to that backup server.
Okay. Yeah, great advice. And there's another question here about getting backups offsite. Does Veeam have partners that provide disaster recovery as a service options to help Veeam customers get that data offsite and into a cloud?
Yeah, and I can answer that. This is Mark. We have, I think at last count, something in excess of 20,000 of our what we call Veeam Cloud Connect partners around the world. And that's what they do. They utilize a piece of software from Veeam called Veeam Cloud Connect that provides secure multi-tenancy. And they, unlike the public cloud, which is very much a do-it-yourself builder's build environment, if you will, sometimes that can be quite intimidating for customers that don't have a lot of experience with the public cloud. So our Cloud Connect providers, which many use Veeam Software and HPE gear, storage gear, they provide getting your backups off-site, backup as a service, getting your replicas off-site, DR as a service, and they do it in very much a white glove fashion. So it isn't, they don't leave it completely up to the end user to figure out how all this works. They've done this with many other customers, and they can make it a heck of a lot easier than going up and trying to figure out how you would do that in a public cloud platform.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, that does sound a lot easier for that support just to be included and integrated with Veeam. Another question here. Let's see. What are some examples of Veeam Explorers? Can you give us some examples of different applications that they support?
Sure. This is Mark again. So, we've got, I think I mentioned the Explorer for storage snapshots, whether those were orchestrated by Veeam or not. So that right there, that's not an application, but that is one example. If we look on the Application Explorer side from Veeam, we have developed over the years so that we have them for Microsoft Exchange, Microsoft SharePoint, SQL Server, Active Directory, and Oracle. So go in and through an Explorer interface, pull out exactly what you need. I think Exchange is always a great example because everyone can relate to, I accidentally deleted an email some time ago. Now I realize I need it back. And those explorers can go in and get just that single email and restore it back to where it was, or provide many flexible options on putting it in a different location or doing advanced discovery options, so I can pull out a group of emails that were sent between this date and have this particular string in the subject. So tremendously flexible and powerful. And one other thing to mention, as we're talking about Veeam Explorers, unlike some other companies that are in the similar space, all of Veeam software is first-party software. It's all our own intellectual property. We don't license any third-party software because if there's a problem, we want to be able to directly be able to fix that quickly for our customers and not rely on effectively a very long supply chain in the case of a problem.
Very nice. Yeah, I like that. That's unique in the industry, I believe. Here's another question. Maybe this is for Jeff. What exactly is a StoreOne Catalyst and how does it help?
Mark, you want to take that?
I will indeed. So Catalyst StoreOnce is a purpose-built backup appliance that has very aggressive data reduction or data deduplication. And in its first early generations, the interface for it was a simple NAS interface. So either SMB, sometimes called CIFS, or NFS. Some years ago, they created the ability to provide source-based deduplication in addition to their target-based deduplication. They did this with effectively an agent, they call it the Catalyst client, that can be installed over at the source, so on the side of the backup server, and therefore the data can be reduced before it's sent across the network and stored on that appliance. So a Catalyst store on a StoreOnce is really just it's something that you go in and define very quickly through the StoreOnce interface as a place that you want to put, a certain segment of your backups. And because there's this Catalyst capability, like I referred to, Catalyst Copy, if I stored things in one Catalyst store, I can then very easily flag that and say, whatever's in here, go ahead and copy that over to a Catalyst store on a StoreOnce at another location, or potentially even up in the cloud.
Very nice. Yeah, sounds like it could make things much easier when it comes to data protection. Next question here: how much time does it take to run and verify backup jobs with Veeam?
I can certainly answer that one as well. And some of that is dependent upon the customer environment, the performance of the storage and the servers that they're leveraging. But to just use a bit of a broad brush here, it's something that you would want to do after the backup's complete and probably before production use begins. Now, the good news is that Veeam backups happen very quickly, so there is still time in the operation window to, at the end of a backup job, to go ahead and tell it to run a verification job, what we call a sure backup or a sure replica, depending on whether it's a backup or a replica job. And that will ensure not only that we get a heartbeat from the virtual machine, a ping from the operating system, and if it's an application that we're application aware with, we can actually verify the application working. And the great thing about the sure backup job is I can set this up once, put it on a schedule, whatever the right cadence is, daily, weekly, monthly, and it will automatically run. And when it's done, it will send me an email report that shows me the state of those three tests: the VM, the operating system, and the application. And for many of our customers that are in compliance-centric environments, like financial and healthcare, when their auditors come in and they have to prove that not only were the machines backed up, but they're recoverable, they show them this sure backup report. The auditor checks that box and they move on to the next item.
Very nice. Yeah, that's going to be critical for compliance and fantastic for audits, like you just mentioned. Next question is about Veeam and ROI, or Veeam and HPE and the ROI report. I mean, I don't want to spoil what the report says, but can you kind of tell us what are some of the ways that the Veeam and HPE solution together can help to reduce, um, to improve return on investment, I should say?
Yeah, this is Jeff. I'll start out and let others jump in. First and foremost, it really, when you think about backup, you think about backup windows and when something does go bad, how quickly can data be restored? So and then once you can satisfy that, it's the efficiency of kind of restoring and moving data back and forth. So through the management integration primarily, we're able to save all kinds of time, redundancy, and steps, things that could be actually translated into efficiencies of the IT staff in the ongoing maintenance, if you will, of the data, and that brings lower cost of ownership, if you will, and you start extrapolating that over numerous years. It can be very substantial. In fact, we see organizations being able to take the returns that they save from the better management through integration and be able to apply incremental resources into their business that are focused then on driving greater innovations. That's one area. I don't know, Chris, you or others want to comment?
Well, I mean, if I could just comment on the ease of use and being
Yeah.
able to architect an easy solution for this. If I had a Nimble, a 3PAR, a Primera array in my data center, I mean, that would definitely be my first resort of creating restore points. And you can orchestrate all that through the Veeam UI. You can orchestrate those snapshots. You can You can take backups from them, which improves backup performance. But really, the snapshot itself, right from the primary array, that offers not just great restore performance, but it delivers all these integrative features that I think some of what you're alluding to there, Jeff. Like the on-demand lab, data labs, and we can do sure backup testing to make sure that you can restore. I can also answer one of the questions I see here. A question about ransomware attack and the configuration backup. I'm going to answer this a little bit creatively and tie into to ROI as well. Is that our backups are fully self-described as well. So in this question, I see talking about losing a configuration backup, for example. Um, I mean, I personally, as a very paranoid administrator myself, I would probably occasionally go in there and the configuration backup that I'm looking at, I just logged in my own lab. My configuration backup is less than a meg. So just being very paranoid myself, I could pull this off of my backup repository and save it on a thumb drive even. And we do that. I can do that because these backups are self-describing. I can move them anywhere. And that in and of itself, and you may not see that initially as a high return on investment, but little features like that you get with Veeam is definitely it's definitely a value add when you're in the middle of those high pressure data recovery scenarios and things happen that you don't quite expect to happen.
Great point. Very well said. Well, I know that we're running low on time here. We've gotten so many great questions from the audience. I really appreciate those. Are there any other questions that we need to cover before we wrap up? No? Okay,
Yeah,
excellent. I think we've covered it all. Again, really appreciate all the great questions from the audience and the great presentation today from Chris, Mark, and Jeff. Thank you all for being on the event today.
all
Thank
right,
you.
great. Thanks so much.
And thank you to our audience for joining us on the event. I hope that you enjoyed the event and learned a lot. I know that I did. Before we go, I want to award the Amazon $300 gift card that's going to Thomas Goodman from North Carolina. Congratulations, Thomas Goodman from North Carolina. I also want to remind everyone to check out the slide presentation that you can download there in the handouts tab, the full slide deck from today, including the links to the special resources that you see on the screen. Also, check out the IDC research report. That's the very first link there in the handouts tab as well for more information on how the Veeam and HPE solution can help you to maximize your return on data protection. Thank you to Veeam and HPE for supporting today's event. Have a great day. Bye-bye.